Japan and the United States are gearing up for the third round of tariff negotiations. As planned, Japan's Minister of State for Economic Revitalization, Akazawa Ryo, will visit the US from May 23rd to 25th to attend the third US-Japan ministerial meeting. Prior to this, working-level trade consultations between the two countries were held in Washington on the 19th. However, the exact timing of this round of negotiations and the US delegation lineup remain unconfirmed. Sources indicate that US Treasury Secretary Bethant will not participate, with US Trade Representative Greer and others likely attending instead. Within the Japanese government, this negotiation is seen as a make-or-break moment. Japanese Prime Minister Ishibashi Shigeru and Chief Negotiator Akazawa Ryo reiterated on May 19th and 20th that they hope the Trump administration will cancel all newly imposed tariffs. Notably, Japan is in no hurry to reach an agreement with the US. Looking back, on May 18th, US Treasury Secretary Bethant stated publicly that the US government is focused on its top 18 most important trade relationships, emphasizing that the timeline for any agreement depends on whether countries negotiate in good faith. For nations deemed lacking sincerity, he warned, the US would send a letter specifying tariff rates implicitly threatening to revert to the levels set on April 2nd. The question arises, which countries does Bethant consider insincere? Public information shows three nations with unresolved negotiations: India, Japan, and South Korea. With South Korea's upcoming elections leaving it without a negotiator and Trump already claiming a major victory with India, Japan appears to be the sole target. Japan's hardline stance in tariff talks, refusing to budge and even publicly threatening to use its US Treasury holdings as leverage, has likely landed it on Bethant's insincere list. When negotiations with Bethant stalled, Japan resorted to diplomatic maneuvering. On May 16th, Japanese Vice Foreign Minister Tsurugi Kinyoko held talks with US Deputy Secretary of State Nandaba, first sub-ministerial diplomatic consultation between the two countries since Trump took office. Surprisingly, the agenda was not geopolitics, but Japan seeking State Department support to pressure the Treasury Department. In essence, Japan is asking the US government to prioritize geopolitical alliances over tariff interests, arguing that as a key ally, it has contributed beyond trade and deserves concessions. This strategy puts US National Security Advisor Rubio, recently appointed by Trump and now a powerful figure in the White House, in a dilemma. If he intervenes to favor Japan for geopolitical reasons, how will the US handle similar demands from the EU? If he refuses, Japan may retaliate by withholding cooperation on Asian issues like Taiwan or North Korea, undermining US influence in the region. With Rubio already sidelined by China, alienating Japan could further cripple his Asian diplomatic strategy. This episode highlights a critical tension. Is the US prioritizing short-term tariff gains or long-term geopolitical alliances? Choosing the former risks collapsing America's decades-old alliance system and strengthening the EU's push for strategic autonomy. Consequences even Trump must weigh carefully. Japan's defiance stems from a stark reality: it cannot afford to concede. While Trump cites Japan's $55 billion trade surplus with the US in 2024 as grounds for correction, he ignores that Japan has run overall trade deficits for 5 consecutive years since 2020, hitting a peak of $150.3 billion in 2022. In 2024 alone, Japan's deficit with China reached $42.4 billion. This raises questions about Japan's status as an industrial powerhouse and underscores the high stakes of these negotiations. Capitulation could trigger economic collapse, while resistance offers a slim chance of survival. Trump's tariff war, once seen as a bold strategy, now appears ill-planned. With major economies like China, the EU, and Japan either resisting or negotiating cautiously, the US is struggling to sustain momentum, revealing the pitfalls of overestimating American leverage and underestimating global pushback. Decades ago, Japanese products dominated global markets, but today's trade data tells a stark story of decline. Unlike resource-rich nations like Saudi Arabia or Russia, Japan, an industrial powerhouse with scarce natural resources, relies entirely on imports for survival. Consider its dependency: 100% of iron ore, 97% of rare earths, and 100% of copper come from abroad. In energy, 99.7% of oil, 99% of coal, and 97% of natural gas are imported. Even food security is precarious, with a mere 37% self-sufficiency rate. For such a nation, prolonged trade deficits are existential threats. Depleting foreign reserves would cripple its ability to import raw materials and sustain industry. Trump's demand for US-Japan trade balance effectively threatens to eliminate Japan's last major source of foreign currency. With no other leverage, Japan's threat to sell US Treasury bonds is not posturing, but desperation. How did Japan fall from its industrial zenith? In its heyday, Japan dominated 5 key industries: consumer electronics, semiconductors, automobiles, steel, and shipbuilding. Its global market share was staggering: 65% in colored TVs, 98% in VCRs, 89% in Walkmans. In manufacturing components, it controlled 78% of air conditioner compressors, 91% of microwave magnetrons, and 70% of CNC machine tools. Even in solar power, Sharp, Kyocera, and Sanyo held 51% of the global market 20 years ago. For 43 years, 1980 to 2023, Japan reigned as the world's top auto exporter, while its shipbuilding industry peaked at 50% global share in 1973. Today, all that dominance has shifted to China. China now leads in auto exports, shipbuilding, and nearly every home appliance category: 82% in air conditioners, 76% in refrigerators, 63% in TVs. Japanese giants like Panasonic, once 38% of global battery market, have been overtaken by CATL, while China's LED screen market share 53% dwarfs Japan's former leader, Sharp 68%. Even in high-speed rail, Japan's 73% patent share in the past now contrasts with China's 73% of global mileage. Japan's decline stems from losing old industries without capturing new ones, failing to compete in tech sectors like AI, renewables, or the internet. Its remaining strongholds are shrinking: Shinetsu Chemicals, 72% global photoresist share, and Teray's 61% carbon fiber dominance face Chinese rivals Nonda Optoelectronics and Zhongfu Shenying, with breakthroughs likely within 2 years. Even its adult entertainment industry offers minimal economic relief. Japan's post-World War II rise was fueled by US protectionism. The 1950 San Francisco Peace Treaty tied it to American hegemony, granting unprecedented trade advantages: a mere 4% export tariff under GATT versus 15% plus on imports, import quotas, and technology transfers. This allowed Japan to shield domestic industries while flooding global markets. But when Japanese firms threatened US dominance, particularly in semiconductors, Nikon alone held 50% of the lithography market. The US struck back. The 1985 Plaza Accord devalued the yen, while industrial sabotage, for example, the Toshiba scandal, forced Japan to dismantle its chip sector, with South Korea absorbing much of its expertise. Today, Japan faces a death spiral. Reliant on resource imports from commodity exporters and manufacturing components from China, its economy cannot sustain itself. Trump's tariff demands resemble a modern-day Plaza Accord, but Japan knows another concession would trigger collapse. Cornered, it defies the US, a risky gamble. But for a nation on the economic precipice, there may be no other choice.